Good morning to all who have joined us here today on Betcher Commons and to those following us on live stream. I'm Ralph Altieri, Dean of the University of Colorado Skaggs School of Pharmacy and Pharmaceutical Sciences. It is my pleasure and privilege to welcome you to this special day and the special ceremony honoring the 145 members of the Doctor of Pharmacy class of 2002. 2022. Oh, 2022. I knew there was something wrong with that. The focus of today will be on this superb group of students. To bring themselves to this moment, they worked very long and very hard. You persevered and you made it. So I would like to begin by giving them, the class of 2022, a rounding round of applause. We have joining us today family members and friends who have helped our graduates emotionally, intellectually, spiritually, and perhaps most importantly, financially. I ask our graduates to stand, turn around, and thank your loyal supporters. The past 27 months have been a rough and difficult time for us all. The COVID-19 pandemic is still with us, but thankfully less virulent than previous variants, allowing us to live lives that more closely resemble normal. Even with some degree of normalcy, I would like for us to take a moment of silence and remembrance for all those we have lost to COVID-19, more than 1 million of them in the United States alone, and those who have yet to fall victim to this virus, both here at home and around the world. Thank you. Throughout this difficult time, we have had much to be thankful for. Gratitude to frontline workers in all sectors of our economy who provided us with essential services and products that allowed us to live relatively normal lives over the past 2 years. I'm sure we have some of those in our audience today, and we thank you. To our new best friends from UPS, FedEx, and Amazon, our teachers and educators from K-12 to higher education, to our own pharmacy faculty members, all of whom had to switch in a matter of days back in March of 2020 from in-person to remote education and now back again to in-person teaching. Thank you for a job well done. And thank you, Zoom. Without you, I'm not sure what we would have done. And of course, frontline healthcare workers who risk their lives every day to care for those in dire need. Among those healthcare providers are community pharmacists who showed up every day to provide us with our medications and personalized help, and who even to this day are providing a huge public health service through COVID vaccination programs. Among those frontline healthcare workers are some of those seated behind me, our clinical faculty members who daily cared for patients in clinics and hospitals, including ICUs caring for COVID-19 patients. And our research faculty who pivoted their research programs early on to help in the discovery of drugs to combat SARS-CoV-2 virus. And special thanks to the vaccine developers and manufacturers who brought the COVID vaccine to market in record time that saved countless lives. Thank you to all who gave and who continue to give to us. The focus today, of course, is on this superb group of students. To bring themselves to this moment, they have demonstrated their professionalism and resilience over the last 2 years during these challenging circumstances to complete their program and make it to their graduation day. But they did not merely survive these past 2 years, they thrived. You weathered a storm the likes of which has not been seen in generations. You had to learn and grow up fast into a true healthcare pharmacy professional. You endured and succeeded in the rapid transition from in-person to remote learning. You entered your 4th year with a great deal of hope and with the end in sight, but also with a bit of apprehension as the pandemic continued and you would have exposure to COVID-infected patients. Many of you learned to provide patient care in fully virtual environments and adopted rapidly to new technology to provide telehealth and telemedicine, telepharmacy. Over the course of 2021, this graduating class participated in a historic COVID-19 vaccination effort. They were part of a school-wide campaign that recruited, screened, educated, and ultimately vaccinated more than 50,000 people, many of them from underserved and underrepresented communities. This has and will continue to save countless lives. I am grateful to each one of you for your fortitude, persistence, commitment, and resilience. You met with adversity and you came out victorious. You, the graduates of the class of 2022, have already made a mark for yourself and for pharmacy. On behalf of the faculty, a hearty congratulations to you. Well done. I encourage everyone to read more about our graduates in the Pharmacy Perspectives publication you received today. You'll be amazed and moved by the stories about our graduates. They came into our program thinking they knew what the next 4 years would be like, and boy, were they wrong, and so were we. But we made it, and at the same time, we learned how important it is to work together. I believe we have prepared you well to take your place among the best pharmacy practitioners. But every generation has new challenges, and we know there are challenges ahead for you. As you know, you have the tools, fortitude, ideas, skills, and resilience to meet these challenges. Among those challenges, I will mention 2 that definitely require your concerted effort. They are too big for any one pharmacist, even a great CU pharmacist like yourself, to manage alone. Sustainability. As the climate changes, we see an increasing number of problems that affect the health of virtually everyone. Poor air quality leading to greater respiratory and cardiovascular problems, greater risk of bacterial and viral infections, heat-induced stress leading to numerous health issues and premature deaths, and many more. As healthcare professionals, as pharmacists, you are now and will be facing these challenges, and we look to you to help address them. Professional pharmacy organizations around the world are beginning to address these issues, from the International Pharmaceutical Federation to country-level professional associations, providing guidance on what you as pharmacists can do to help. And we know you can do it. Secondly, and one we have become all too familiar with, is the public health crisis of violence in all forms. The American Society of Health Systems Pharmacists, ASHP, the largest professional pharmacy society in our country, has published a policy position on the role of pharmacists in violence prevention, including improving access to mental health services, including treatment for substance use disorder, screening to identify victims of or individuals at risk of violence, providing trauma-informed care, participating in or promoting community or hospital-based violence prevention organizations, and numerous others. Both of these challenges take you beyond your self-perceived level of expertise, but we know you are capable of working together using your knowledge and skills to address these larger challenges that lie outside your direct patient care roles, and speak to the larger public health issues of which you can be part of the solution. Do not be reluctant. Seek out guidance, resources, other health professionals who can help you engage in these critical issues affecting all of humanity. You have proven that you have what it takes to face adversity. We know you can meet these challenges head on as well. You've worked hard to where you are today. The pharmacy degrees conferred upon you represent opportunities for you to make tomorrow even better. As we celebrate this occasion, it is also appropriate to reflect on those that have gone before you. The accomplishments of our graduates over the years are many, from leadership positions in national pharmacy associations to creating new and more effective treatment methods to frequently acting as the only healthcare professional in rural communities. Our graduates have and will continue to shape healthcare. Today, you, our 2022 graduates, will join this distinguished group and start blazing your own trails of impact. A few quick examples. Sandra Leal, PharmD 1998, immediate past president of the American Pharmacists Association, among many other accolades. Bob Light, 1978, independent pharmacist for many years in Denver, and formerly director of Walgreens National Resource Center for Compounding, and then National Senior Director of Compounding Services at the Hutchinson Medicine Company. Kevin Kerr, PharmD, 2011, Director of Clinical Development at IRI Pharmaceuticals, leading early and late-stage clinical programs to develop novel treatments for ophthalmic diseases with unmet medical need. Turning to our faculty, as I'm sure this class will attest, we have in our school the finest, most dedicated, and most talented group of faculty members you will find in any pharmacy school. In addition to the frontline clinical care and research by our faculty already mentioned, the faculty seated behind me are the ones who had to make that transition from in-person to remote education in only a few days. I am sure you've all heard the expression, necessity is the mother of invention. A few years ago, I learned a more modern version of that, which is necessity is the mother of invention and desperation is the grandmother of innovation. Well, we all met mother and grandmother these last 2 years, and our faculty rose to the challenge through invention and innovation that is continuing today and into the future. As with our alumni examples, a few examples of the national and international groundbreaking work and reputations of our faculty include Dr. Sunny Linneber, past president of the American Geriatric Society, and the first woman pharmacist ever to be elected to that position. Dr. Robert Page served for 4 years as chair of the American Heart Association Committee on Clinical Pharmacology, the first pharmacist in the history of the American Heart Association to lead this committee. He also is the first and only pharmacist to be appointed to the American Heart Association Leadership Council on Clinical Cardiology. Dr. John Carpenter, along with his collaborator Ted Randolph from the UC Boulder campus, had the January 2020 issue of the Journal of Pharmaceutical Sciences dedicated to them in recognition of their body of work as scientists. This is a very rare and a very high honor in the world of science. Krishna Mallela, professor of biophysical chemistry. His current research includes understanding the emergence of SARS-CoV-2 virus variants leading to new waves of COVID infections. His research has been featured in the Discover magazine written for the general public, medical news articles written for clinicians, multiple journal cover pages, which is another big deal in science, and campus-wide newsletters. And he has been invited to present his COVID research at multiple international conferences. He successfully predicted the increased transmissibility of the latest Omicron variants before clinical observations actually confirmed that. So I would ask you to recognize and thank our faculty. It is now my pleasure to announce the recipient of the 2022 Distinguished Coloradan Award. The Distinguished Coloradan Award is the highest recognition offered by the University of Colorado Skaggs School of Pharmacy and Pharmaceutical Sciences. Established in 1988, it is a Lifetime Achievement Award to recognize alumni and friends of the school, and the award is made upon a vote of the faculty. The recipient of the 2022 Distinguished Colorado Award is none other than our own Dr. David Thompson. Dr. Thompson joined the faculty of our school in 1988, the year this award was established, providing 34 years. Did you have a plan? Okay. I bet he did. Providing 34 years of truly dedicated service to our faculty and students as a faculty member and associate dean for academic affairs. He retired in December 31st of last year. Dr. Thompson has over 120 publications to his credit and was a beloved professor, earning numerous teaching awards as voted on by you, our students, and earning the respect of our faculty and staff. He also served as faculty senate chair, where he was a tireless advocate for students and fellow faculty members. Although officially retired, Dr. Thompson continues to lead accreditation efforts for our upcoming fall of 2023 accreditation visit. So congratulations, Dr. Thompson. So speaking of superb teachers, as we do every year, we now recognize our two highest level teaching awardees. Dr. Ty Kaiser, recipient of the President's Excellence in Teaching Award. Unfortunately, he could not be with us today, but I would please ask all of us to recognize this great achievement. It's now my pleasure to call upon Dr. Joseph Sassine, recipient of this year's Chancellor's Teaching Recognition Award, to address our graduates.
Well, good morning, everyone. I want to start off by congratulating everybody in this audience, whether you be a graduate, a friend, a family, a loved one of a graduate, or an educator of our graduates. This is not just a celebration for you, but it is a celebration for us too. Think back on all the hard work that you have done over the past 4 years, and it's all come to this point where you really can enjoy it. I was a little bit reluctant as what to expect based on that snowstorm that we had, but I'm really glad, just bask in the fact that we live in Colorado, and also that yesterday you were students and today you're our colleagues at the Skaggs School of Pharmacy and Pharmaceutical Sciences. So I think that's a wonderful thing. I'm also grateful for a lot of different things. The ability to be here, to actually see everybody without their masks on. I haven't seen the full faculty, at least this many faculty, without masks on live. I usually see them via Zoom. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to see live people. For an extrovert like myself, that's sort of something that I really need to bring out the best in me. But I do want to say that being an educator can be sometimes a thankless job, but it really isn't. You know, an example like today is that it's not thankless. I couldn't express my gratitude more. I was not expecting to receive your Chancellor's Teaching Award. I'm humbled and I'm very grateful for this honor. I take that seriously and I hope to do you good. Now, how can I do you good on maybe the last faculty member to lecture? I don't really want to lecture, but not on the day like today. But in looking back, I do want to reflect on a few things that were impactful for me. So I remember very clearly 2019, where I taught your class. And this is for the entry-level program. What do I remember about that particular semester? Well, you're the first class that I actually took a selfie with. I remember Dr. Patel was lecturing on a snow day and I wanted to go and, make her feel good, but I also wanted to see who was there. So I took a selfie. I still have that picture too. And I'll never get rid of it. And it's on Twitter. Oh, it's on Twitter. Great. Awesome. I didn't realize that. I don't tweet or twit or whatever it's called, at least not frequently. And you're also the last class that I taught sort of under, quote, normal circumstances. And for those of you who are in the DDT program, you're the first class that I believe I use that TechSmith relay. So I wasn't the first to use it, but I certainly wasn't the last. And I tried to make it a fun environment as best as I could. But I'll tell you the biggest thing that I remember, and I told faculty members this, in the life of a faculty member, it can be sometimes discouraging. And we can get into that bad habit of complaining about generations and about how things are different. But many of the faculty that are behind me, I remember commenting that there was something different about your class. I felt inspired. I didn't feel, and this is truthful, I didn't feel the same feeling that I had gotten for the past 5 to 10 years, as far as the way it is when you educate. There was something different. And I remember, and it's carried forward because I've seen that in subsequent classes. So I am grateful for that. You served as an inspiration and actually validated that I was in the right spot. But I want to move on to some more important things. So there's a person by the name of Dennis Helling. He's a former executive director of Kaiser Permanente, one of my bosses in the past. He said the secret to a good speech is 3 B's. Be brief, be brilliant, and then be gone. I can try my best to be brief. I could definitely be gone at the end. And I hope that I do the right B and that I'm not a buffoon or boredom. I hope those two do not replace the brilliant, and I'll do my best right now. So I want to share with you my top 5 list of advice for you going forward as graduates of the Skaggs School of Pharmacy and Pharmaceutical Sciences on how to actually not only have a good career, but be good people and have a good life. But due to budget cuts, it's not actually a top 10 list. I'm going to do a top 5 just to make sure I stay within my time budget. So the first is, I implore you to strive to have a successful career. That sort of goes without being said, right? You invested money and time into getting your doctor of pharmacy degree, and now you're at that point. What are some things that you can do to actually really tune it up and to actually make sure that you achieve that? Now, I heard this in 2012 from one of my colleagues. His name is Stuart. He's sort of one of those pedantic kind of PharmDs that doesn't always make you feel good about yourself, but he's quite brilliant. And he shared with me a story from Neil Gaiman. If you don't know who Neil Gaiman is, he's a famous author. He's had 20 books on the top New York Times top list over the past 20 years. He's written comic books and novels and all those kind of things. So smart guy. He actually had some advice that he gave a graduating class one year on how to the work habits for a successful career. And there's 3 of them. And they're pretty simple and straightforward. One is be good at what you do, which is be competent. The second is always be on time, or timeliness. Think of it that way. And the third is to be a pleasure to work with, which is your personal side, that some people call the soft skills or the interprofessional skills. If you can focus on those 3, those are the secret success as work habits for a successful career. But the beautiful thing about this is you don't have to have all 3. You can have 2 of 3 and have a pretty good working career. You can think about that. We know that there's sometimes those people that are really timely and highly competent, but maybe they're difficult to work with. They can have a good work environment. Or on contrast, maybe you have somebody who has high competence and they're timely, or they're not timely, but they really know how to schmooze people and work with others. They can have a good career too. So 2 of those 3 can be a secret for success. But if you really want to rise to the top, focus in on all 3. If you can do all 3, be timely, be really good at what you do, and be easy, or somebody who others want to work with, better for you. My second bit of big advice is really recognize that misinformation and disinformation destroys. We can think of a lot of analogies for that in the medical field, the pharmacy field, or even out there in the world. Now, misinformation, where does that really come from? I think you've heard this before. Well, in therapeutics, that's a gray area. Has anybody heard that? Gray area, gray area leads us to misinformation because people interpret gray differently. But I guess if you want to be really critical, what is gray made of? It's made of black and white. And trying to get people to see the black and the white to make an informed decision may be our best tools for misinformation. You can think about that when you're dealing with your statin defiant population, or your population that's against an effective treatment. Use those tools. We've taught you how to use your critical thinking and deploy them to help out patients. I could have told you, hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, they didn't work. They never would work. I taught you hydroxychloroquine. Remember, with rheumatoid arthritis, it is not used as an antiviral for COVID, but that was a hard sell. Also, if you're trying to understand it, probably the more disturbing thing is disinformation. I know this can a lot of sensitive buttons with disinformation. It can get very political and very religious, and I want to avoid those areas. But one thing that I recently learned, I listened to a podcast by John Ronson. It was called Things Fell Apart. It's a really good 8 series. He's from the BBC, and he goes over the culture wars that we have in the United States. And my point of highlighting this is not to send you off with a certain philosophy, but I find it amazing on how disinformation starts. And he went through 8 different chapters of everything from abortion to religious things to racism to insurrection, and went through how people ended up that way. And I think what it gave me was a sense of knowing the full picture. So I implore you, use your skills. And whenever you're combated with disinformation, try to understand where it's coming from so that you can manage it the best possible. The third advice is work-life balance. Who's heard that before? Everybody, right? It is important. Now, I say that not mean that you shouldn't be serious at your job, because take your job very serious, but also enjoy the moments when you're not at work. As pharmacists now, we sometimes make a terrible mistake. We talk about work, don't we? In social settings, we end up talking or starting off with work. And I think that keeps us in a cycle of not enjoying work-life balance. So that's one thing. Look for your joy and talk about your joy when you're with your friends and loved one. If you want to throw in work too, great, but don't always lead with it, because I think that is maybe our safety zone. And part of work-life balance is follow a heart-healthy diet and a heart-healthy lifestyle, because the #1 killer in adults still is heart disease. The fourth bit of advice that I have for you is be open to change. I've always said that if you're not part of the solution, you are part of the problem. And problems, when you have solutions, are facilitating growth and advancement. So embrace change, embrace the ability to be part of the solution. How can you best be part of a solution? Well, some simple things is look at yourself. We often get frustrated with other people that are difficult to work with, or you have interpersonal conflict. I've always remembered, somebody told me once, the only person you can control is yourself. So how can you best control yourself is if you know yourself. The quality of self-awareness, I also think, is one of those secret weapons that's in your back pocket. If you have a high degree of self-awareness, that you can actually understand how your emotions impact other people and how to control yourself, because you can't always change somebody, but you can influence them if you control your emotions and yourself. Also related to this is just a word on professionalism. I know that's sort of a foundational philosophy in being in a healthcare profession, and now as pharmacists, that we maintain professionalism. But I don't want you to be too hard on yourself, because remember this, professionalism is never defined by the mistakes that you make. And you will make mistakes. We make mistakes. But professionalism is better defined by what your response is to those mistakes that you make. My last bit of advice is to look for good things despite challenging situations. Dean Altieri highlighted a whole bunch of good things that happened during a bad period of 2 years, during a pandemic. But we always have this silver lining. I think back, the Jetsons, they really had it. They knew it ahead of time. Jetsons, when did they were published? They were a cartoon a long time ago, but they know how to do this telehealth thing. They also knew how to do virtual and remote teaching. So maybe the writing was on the wall. Maybe there's some good in having us live differently over the past 2 years that we can pull forward and inspire us. Look for those good things. There are opportunities to maybe brighten up your outlook and your perspective. And when you share them with other people, you'll maybe be ahead of the curve versus chasing the curve. And we have, as pharmacists, expanded healthcare opportunities. Heck, there's even a shortage of primary care physicians. Who better to fill the gap than us, with expanded bandwidth as far as what we teach you guys, have taught you guys and gals, as far as how to use your critical thinking skills, how to exploit your expertise on medication use it because it's needed, and there's a lot of people out there that can benefit from that. Lastly, another thing I want to say that's good about today is I was walking down the hallway and Dmitry Simberg commented on my graduation regalia. So if you notice, we all have different colors, and mine's the color of Ukraine. So and he reminded me of that. So I'm very glad that that's my form of, that I can somehow indirectly support what they're going through, and hope that it ends in a better situation. So my last thing I want to share with you, I am a Spider-Man fan. And there's a saying from Spider-Man, actually it was an ancient adage is what I learned about this. And it's, with great power comes great responsibility. Who's heard of that? Everybody? I think we should flip it. It's not with great power comes great responsibility, but it's with great responsibility comes great power. So as pharmacists, in the context of patient care, we do have great responsibility. Remember that corollary, we also have great power. Use it to improve health of your patients, to represent our profession well, and to represent the School of Pharmacy well. We know that you can do it. We're highly confident. I can't wait to interact with you, guys and gals, 5 and 10 years down the line, and see what all the great stuff that you're doing. Again, congratulations and enjoy today.
All right, thank you, Dr. Sassine. Good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Brian Hemstreet. I have the pleasure of serving as the Associate Dean for Student Affairs here at the School of Pharmacy, and welcome to our ceremony today. Thank you, Dr. Sassine, for those kind words. I have the pleasure of introducing our class of 2022 speakers. So each year, the class votes and nominates for one individual to represent their class and share some reflections on their experience over the last 4 years. This individual I've gotten to know over the course of the last 4 years, given his heavy involvement in student government. I've grown to know that he is an avid baseball fan, much like myself. We won't hold it against him that he's a Los Angeles Dodgers fan, but other than that, and he has a very adept skill at having really, really good waiting room music when we're waiting on Zoom meetings for student council. So he's very, very skilled on that. So you, as the class of 2022, have selected Dr. Tony Duong to deliver this year's graduate address. Dr. Duong.
I don't know how to follow Dr. Sassine or Dr. Hemstreet, but I'm gonna try. So thanks for the introduction, Dr. Hemstreet. Good morning, my fellow graduates, faculty, family, and friends. Oh, I'm so nervous. Okay, hold on. It is truly an honor to have been chosen by my classmates to give this speech today. But before I go any further, I just want to stop and acknowledge how great it is to see all of you beautiful, good-looking people in your graduation regalia in front of me. This is the first time all of us are on campus together since our pharmacotherapy 4 and 5 joint verbal evaluation on AFib and depression during our P2 year. 2 years, it's been 2 years, y'all. And so when I first found out that I was voted to be the speaker, my immediate thought was, I've never given any sort of speech, graduation, convocation speech before. What even goes into one of those, right? So I turned to my friend, Google, and I watched a few YouTube videos from other commencement ceremony, and which I may or may not have watched Taylor Swift's recent speech at NYU. It's a great one. I began brainstorming ideas on what I wanted to say to you all today. How could I eloquently and succinctly put to words all that we have experienced these past few years? And in the process, I realized that writing a speech is a lot like the journey of going through pharmacy school. It reminded me of a lot of different emotions and feelings, and I'm gonna sum up some of them for you. So excitement, just, yeah, I gotta give a speech. Some procrastination, stress, anxiety, doubt, and even like questioning, why did I agree to give this speech in the first place? But I realized also that this is a learning experience, much like pharmacy school. It seemed like yesterday that we were all P1s meeting each other, like coming to orientation and meeting each other for the first time. I can still remember the excitement of receiving my white coat. And then I also remember procrastinating on assignments and studying for evaluations, the stress associated with answering verbal exam questions in a room with 2 other students. Also the anxiety from a proctorio second room scan. And I also remember the doubt going through my mind as I was answering the notorious, which of the following are true, or select all that apply exam questions. And also remember questioning at times why I even went to pharmacy school. But now, here we are, graduating with our doctorates in pharmacy, and soon going on to jobs fellowships, residencies, further education, and other paths. Somehow and in some way, we made it through countless hours of studying, service learning, and what seemed to be the endless month of exams, evaluations, and quizzes that were Testober and March Madness. Somehow and in some way, we made it through P2 spring, P3 fall, Zoom fatigue, sleep deprivation, and there's one more, and appy rotations, all while balancing and maintaining relationships, friendships, leadership positions, and our sanity and mental health, the latter being questionable at times. We even made it through inclement weather, such as the bomb cyclone, and also Denver's 4th worst snowstorm of all time, all while trying to navigate higher education during the COVID-19 pandemic. Pharmacy school has taught us a lot. It's taught us much more than the LDL goal for a secondary prevention patient, less than 70. Much more than not using Entresto in a patient with a history of angioedema, and much more than the empiric therapy for community-acquired pneumonia in a patient with no other risk factors. We also learned that Xeljanz is a JAK inhibitor, doxorubicin is an anthracycline that turns everything red, and amphotericin is amphoterrible for your kidneys, among a few other things. Aside from all the different pharmacy knowledge that we've learned, being in this program has taught us much more about resiliency and community. It has tested our time management skills, discipline, communication, and has pushed us further than we ever thought we could be pushed. As I reflect, what stands out to me the most are not the hours and hours re-listening to lectures on Panopto at 2 times speed, nor the time spent making matrices for all the drugs in any given disease state. What stands out to me the most is the time that we have spent as classmates, peers, and dare I say it, pharmally. It's very cheesy, but I like it. I will remember the explanation of your mnemonic for the hallmarks of cancer much more than the hallmarks themselves. I'll remember the conversations we've had at the library during our study breaks much more than the material that we studied. I remember the coffee runs, concerts, breweries, and Rockies games that we've went to together. I'll remember the memes on our Facebook group page and the support that we have given each other these past 4 years. I want to thank you and all of the faculty for continually inspiring me to learn, to embrace my strengths, and to most importantly, reminding me to always channel my inner Thompson and be bold. Love that, favorite quote. Writing and delivering this speech has been a lot like going through pharmacy school, a lot of emotions and feelings, but what seemed like a daunting task at first, somehow and in some way, I made it through both, and we all did. We've come from all around and have come far these past 4 years as students. As we go our separate paths, we will forever be linked by our experience here as CUPharmacy students. I'm so excited for what is in store for all of us as we embark on our careers as pharmacists and as alumni of this program. I have no doubt that you will all make a tremendous impact in the lives of the patients that you serve and on the paths that you're heading. I will truly cherish all the interactions, conversations, and memories that we have had as classmates during our time here. And in closing, I want to leave you with this quote from Minor Myers Jr. Advice, I guess, last piece of advice. Go into the world and do well. More importantly, go into the world and do good. Congratulations to the class of 2022. We did it, y'all.
All right, thank you, Dr. Duong. Appreciate that. So next, we're going to move into the section of the program where we start to recognize our graduates from our various programs within the School of Pharmacy, the first of which is our distance degrees programs. Unfortunately, Dr. Sean Gleason, our Assistant Dean for Distance Degree Programs, was unable to join us today, so I'm going to turn things over to Dr. Monica Neufer to get us started with this section of the program. Dr. Neufer.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. How are you today? This is a beautiful day, right? So as introduced, I'm Monica Newfer, and I serve as the Academic and Experiential Program Coordinator for the Distance Degree Program. And I am speaking on behalf of Dr. Sean Gleason because she's unable to be here today. But she did have a few kind words, and she regrets for not being here and wanted to congratulate you all for your successful graduation and best wishes on your next adventure, even if not in a TB clinic or in industry. It is my great pleasure and honor to introduce to you the graduates of our distance degrees and programs, or we call it the DDP program. The graduates here have earned one of two advanced degrees, either a Master's of Science in Clinical Pharmacy or the Doctor of Pharmacy degree. What is important to note about these graduates, they already hold a bachelor's degree of pharmacy, and they are licensed, practicing pharmacists throughout the United States, Canada, and even the world. For example, this year, we have graduates representing the Philippines, Ghana, Nigeria, and many others. These graduates have earned these degrees through a slightly different pathway, primarily distance-based or online, and many of you can appreciate this the last 2 years. They are owning and managing their own pharmacy, leading COVID vaccination clinics, and just generally balancing life, both personally and professionally. So why are they doing this? Well, they have pursued these patient-centered degrees for a variety of reasons, both personal and professional, but also to advance our profession and patient care in their local areas. Here are some examples of our students advancing the profession. Some students have provided lectures at their local schools of pharmacy. Others have implemented new programs such as antibiotic stewardship in an inpatient setting, or medication management programs in the ambulatory care setting. They're also designing and providing public health educational programs to patients, community members, and pharmacy professionals all around the world. Advocating local pharmacy organizations and often their managers for key practices such as the importance of following evidence-based guidelines and interprofessional practice. But honestly, there are so many other examples of our students that we just don't have time to share. But here's the cool thing. These new and refined skills are often being implemented the next day at their work site, just after they just learned it the day before, for my wonderful colleagues right behind me. But before I ask the graduates to come forward, I want to call to your attention our DDP commencement seeker, RJ Mendoza. RJ is a graduate Student of the Year Award for our International PharmD program. He was chosen as the commencement speaker due to his academic success, recommendations from preceptors, his professionalism. He's even served as a DDP committee member and frequently interviewed new applicants. He is unable to join us today, but he has provided us with an aspiration commencement speech that can be accessed via the QR code in your program. Please take a moment to watch this. I was pretty impressed. So now I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Paul Reynolds, who is our DDP Educator of the Year Award, to introduce you to our graduates and tell you a little more about them.
All right, DDP PharmDs to be. Let's get started. Are you guys excited? Let's get some diplomas and hood. Woohoo! So up first, we have Rashmi Shingari, and she is one of our first two recipients of the Master's in Clinical Pharmacy degree. Go ahead and scroll that up. Yep. After that, we have Ahmad Sami, who is from Ancaster, Ontario, and he plans on running his community pharmacy business and possibly some teaching. We have Honsa Isolski from Ridgeway, Colorado, and she plans on continuing to excel in her job at St. Mary's Hospital. Trina May Maglalong is from San Ramon, California, and plans on continuing to work for her company, as well as pursue a residency training. Up next, we have ITPD graduate Tonya Bele Okafor from Yorkton, and she plans to continue to work as an inpatient pharmacist with Nova Scotia Health Authority, as well as advance practice in public health in her hometown in Nigeria. Tonya will be hooded by Dr. Peter Rice. Up next, we have Nancy Osakwe, who plans on doing a residency to specialize in either solid organ transplant or nuclear pharmacy. Next, we have Vaishali Patel, who will be hooded by me, Dr. Reynolds. So we're going to have to pause for a second. And she is the recipient of our Outstanding Health Systems APPY Award. We have Deepa Pednekar from Edison, New Jersey. She received the Distinguished Service Award and served as a tutor for several of our students. Amber Russell is from Nova Scotia, Kingston, and plans to pursue residency training after working for another year. Lena Shukri is our North American Trained PharmD Student of the Year and is from Burlington, Massachusetts. Up next is our ITPD graduate, Govinda Singh. Govinda is originally from Guyana and resides in Queens, New York, and has been providing several pharmacotherapy lectures at the University of Guyana. Up next, we have a list of DDP students that are graduating that are not able to attend live, but are live streaming currently. I will just be reading their names. Maureen McComb is receiving the MS in clinical pharmacy. Behruz Afram is receiving a PharmD. Francisca Aniki, Irene Bly, Stephen Thomas Bruckner, Kevin Glick, Yulia Gosarina, Mihir Karid, Edita Kukshan, Dennis Losardi, and RJ Mendoza. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Reynolds. Let's give one more round of applause to our distance degrees and programs graduates. Well done. So next, we're going to move into recognizing the class of 2022 from our entry-level program. So we'll have our staff members direct you to the side of the stage here on the right. For those of you in the audience who are participating as personal hitters for some of our graduates, when your graduate comes out of the row and lines up here on the right, just please come from the audience and meet them here at the right of the stage. For family members who wish to get pictures, you can approach the side of the stages over here or in the designated area over here by the green poles. We'll just ask that you come take some pictures and then make some rooms for some additional folks that may want to come through. Graduates will ask that you bring up your hood with you as well as your name card. As you guys come across the stage, you'll exit to the right. There will be our photographers here, and then you'll meet our nice alumni folks on the end here as well, and then make your way back to your seat. All right. All right, so first up, we have Dr. Reginald Torres Agaran. I forgot to mention that Dr. Sassine will be our designated hooder as our teaching award recipient. Okay, next up we have Dr. Mohammed Fahmi Al-Kazaz. He's going to be hooded today by his wife, Dr. Thurba Hansma. And Mohammed is going to be joining Safeway as his career pathway afterwards. All right, next up we have Dr. Amal Abdullah Al-Haddad. All right, next up we have Dr. Chase Wayne Allen. Dr. Allen will be pursuing a residency program at Salina Regional Health Center in Salina, Kansas. All right, next up we have Dr. Patrick Ryan Allen. And he's going to be hooded today by his mother, Martha Allen, who is also a pharmacist. All right, next up we have Dr. Sarah Swanson Amaral. Dr. Amaral is going to be pursuing a residency program at Niagara Falls Memorial Medical Center in Niagara Falls, New York. All right, next we have Dr. Danielle Lynn Ambrosio. Dr. Ambrosio will be joining Walgreens after her tenure here at the School of Pharmacy. Congratulations. All right, next up we have Dr. Faithful Anane Asane. Dr. Anane Asane will be pursuing a fellowship with Blueprint Medicines in conjunction with Northeastern University in Cambridge, Massachusetts. All right, next up we have Dr. Sarah Fatima Azimi. And she's going to be hooded today by Dr. Yolanda Azimi, her mom. Dr. Azimi will be pursuing a residency program at the University of New Mexico Hospitals in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Next up, we have Dr. Tracy Bien Bach. She's going to be hooded today by Dr. Connie Valdez. Dr. Bach will be pursuing employment with Rite Aid Pharmacy Corporation. All right, next up we have Dr. Brianna Kathleen Barganier. She's going to be hooded today by Dr. Sarah Wettergreen. Dr. Barganier is going to be pursuing employment with Walmart Corporation following graduation. All right, next up we have Dr. Katen Kennedy Barngrover. Dr. Barngrover is going to be pursuing a residency at Lutheran Medical Center in Wheat Ridge, Colorado. All right, next we have Dr. Daniel Guadalupe Byron Villalobos. He's going to be hooded today by Dr. Stephanie Lee. He's going to be pursuing employment with the King Soopers Corporation following graduation. All right, next up, we have Dr. Christina Marie Bartholomew. Dr. Bartholomew will be pursuing a PGY1 residency program at Denver Health Medical Center in Denver. All right, next up, we have Dr. Meghna Basnet. Dr. Basnet will be pursuing a residency program at New York Presbyterian Hospital in New York City. All right, next up, we have Dr. Lyra Pasno Beltrand. Dr. Beltran will be pursuing a residency program at the University of Illinois at Chicago. All right, next up we have Dr. Isabel Ann Binsdale. She will be pursuing a residency program at Children's Hospital of Colorado, right behind us. All right, next up we have Dr. Ellen Frances Boyle. She's going to be hooded today by Dr. Dana Hamamura. Dr. Boyle will be pursuing a residency program at Duke University Hospital in Durham, North Carolina. All right, next up we have Dr. Jessica Louise Brady. She's going to be hooded today by one of our alumni, Dr. Jessica Guzniewski. Dr. Brady will be pursuing a PGY1 residency program at North Kansas City Hospital in North Kansas City, Missouri. Next up, we have Dr. Jarrett Allen Bremer. Dr. Bremer will be pursuing a residency program at Wolfson's Children's Hospital in Jacksonville, Florida. All right, next up we have Dr. Isabella Tomaselli Brock. She's going to be hooded today by her mother, Dr. Deborah Tomaselli Brock. Dr. Brock will be pursuing a residency program at Mountain View Regional Medical Center in Las Cruces, New Mexico. All right, next up we have Dr. Tweet T. Bui. She's going to be hooded today by Dr. Connie Valdez. All right, next up we have Dr. David Edward Birch. Dr. Birch will be pursuing employment with the King Soopers Corporation following graduation. All right, next up we have Dr. Jordan Shea Burkdahl. She's going to be hooded today by Dr. Sarah Nichols. Dr. Burkdahl is pursuing employment with the U.S. Public Health Service following graduation. All right, next up we have Dr. Parker Thomas Kane. Dr. Kane will be pursuing a residency program at Dignity Health Mercy Medical Center in Redding, California. Next up, we have Dr. Gina Therese Camarata. Dr. Camarano will be staying here to pursue a community-based residency program in association with the University of Colorado Skaggs School of Pharmacy and King Soopers. All right, next up, we have Dr. Van T. Cow. She's going to be hooded today by Dr. Chi Cow. And Dr. Cow will be pursuing employment with the Kroger Corporation following graduation. Next up, we have Dr. Mario Carriega. He's going to be hooded today by Dr. David Thompson. Dr. Carriega will be pursuing a residency program at Centura Health Penrose St. Francis Health Services in Colorado Springs. Next up, we have Dr. London Brooke Caton. Dr. Caton will be pursuing employment with King Soopers Corporation following graduation. Next up, we have Dr. Nalina Chanel Chand. Dr. Chan will be joining Parexel Corporation as a clinical research associate following graduation. All right, next up, we have Dr. Stephen Jeffrey Chatoff. Next up, Dr. Dorian Jeffrey Chen. Dr. Chen will be pursuing a fellowship in association with University of Southern California and AbbVie Corporation in Irvine, California. Next up, we have Dr. Molly Catherine Clow. Dr. Clow will be joining the Safeway Corporation, pursuing employment following graduation. Next up, we have Dr. Rebecca Ann Connors. All right, next up, Dr. Corin Coppinger. He's going to be hooded today by his wife, Dr. Sarah Coppinger. Corin will be pursuing a PGY1 residency program at Northern Colorado Medical Center in Greeley. Next up, Dr. Lawrence Benjamin Cruz. Dr. Cruz will be joining the Walgreens Corporation following graduation. Next up, we have Dr. Safia Dawalatse. She will be pursuing employment with the King Soopers Corporation following graduation. All right, next up, we have Dr. Emily Anna Dorgan. Dr. Dorgan will be staying here to pursue a residency program at University of Colorado Hospital. All right, next up, we have Dr. Keenan Terrell Maurice Douglas. He's going to be hooded today by his mother, Dr. Karen Douglas. Next up, we have Dr. Phoebe Huang Duong. Dr. Duong will be staying here to pursue a fellowship with the School of Medicine and Immunology. Next up, Dr. Tony Duong. Dr. Duong will be heading to the University of California, San Francisco Medical Center to complete a residency program there. All right, next up, Dr. Amanda Seidel Ellingson. Dr. Ellingson will be pursuing employment with the CVS Corporation following graduation. All right, next up we have Dr. Sloan Lindsay English. Dr. English will be pursuing a residency program at the Massachusetts General Hospital in Boston, Massachusetts. All right, next up we have Dr. Sarah A. Galante. She's going to be hooded today by her mother, Dr. Lisa Galante. Dr. Galante will be pursuing a residency program at Memorial Hermann Memorial City Medical Center in Houston, Texas. Next up, Dr. Emily K. Gamble. Dr. Gamble will be pursuing a residency program with Centura St. Anthony Hospital in Lakewood, Colorado. Next up, Dr. Dennis Matthew Garza. All right, next up, Dr. Rachel May Gillum. Dr. Gillum will be pursuing employment with Dale's Pharmacy in Fort Lupton following graduation. All right, next up, Dr. Robert John Gilliland. Dr. Gilliland will be pursuing a PGY1 residency program with Good Samaritan Medical Center in Lafayette. All right, next we have Dr. Grachelle Sedumiano Ganong. Dr. Ganong will be pursuing a community-based PGY1 pharmacy residency program in conjunction with Fred Meyer in Washington State University. Next up, we have Dr. Shelby Elise Hafner. She's going to be hooded today by Dr. Marissa Kaus, her cousin. Dr. Hafner will be pursuing a PGY1 residency program in conjunction with Magellan RX Management Corporation. All right, next up we have Dr. Anna Han. Dr. Han will be pursuing a fellowship with Rutgers University in conjunction with Pfizer Breast Cancer Oncology Team in New York City. Next up, Dr. Baron Allen Hatton. Dr. Hatton will be pursuing employment with the Kroger Corporation in Louisville, Kentucky. Next up, we have Dr. Cameron Keola He. All right, next up, Dr. Jacob Douglas Heiling. All right, next up, Dr. Paige Victoria Holtz. Dr. Holtz will be pursuing employment with Safeway Corporation following graduation. All right, next up, Dr. Grant Huckles. Dr. Huckles will be pursuing employment with Walmart Corporation following graduation. All right, next up, Dr. Paige Elise Johnson. She will be hooded today by her aunt, Dr. Chris Johnson. And then Dr. Johnson will be pursuing employment with Publix following graduation. Next up, Dr. Renee Michelle Johnson. She will be hooded today by Dr. Megan Thompson. And Dr. Johnson is currently employed full-time as a pharmacist with Walgreens Corporation. Next up, Dr. Isaiah Omre Kaiser. Dr. Kaiser will be pursuing employment with King Soopers Corporation following graduation. Next up, we have Dr. Daniel K. Kim. Dr. Kim will be pursuing a residency program at Parkview Medical Center in Pueblo, Colorado. Next up, Dr. William Kyle Kirshner. He will be hooded today by his parents, Dr. Robert Kirshner and Dr. Catherine Kirshner. Next up, Dr. Nicole Kovac. Dr. Kovac will be pursuing employment with the King Soopers Corporation following graduation. Next up, Dr. Oh Jun Kwan. Dr. Kwan will be pursuing a residency program at Baptist Health Medical Center in North Little Rock, Arkansas. Next up, Dr. Sandy Lay. Dr. Lay will be pursuing employment with CVS Corporation following graduation. All right, next up, Dr. Madeline Lieben. Dr. Lieben will be hooded by her brother, Dr. Jacob Lieben. Dr. Lieben will be staying on here to pursue a PGY1 residency program at University of Colorado Hospital. All right, next up we have Dr. Shelby Lewis. She is being hooded today by Dr. Valerie Hogan. Dr. Lewis will be pursuing employment with Walgreens Corporation following graduation. Next up, we have Dr. Scott Michael Lazewski. All right, next up, Dr. Juan Carlos Lopez. Dr. Lopez will be pursuing a first-year residency program at Boston Medical Center. All right, next up, Dr. Colin Renee Lowe. Dr. Lowe will be pursuing a first-year residency program at UC Health Memorial Hospital in Colorado Springs. All right, next up, Dr. Callie Jane Lunawa. She will be hooded today by Dr. Megan Thompson. Dr. Lunawa will be staying on to pursue a PGY1 residency program at University of Colorado Hospital. Next up, Dr. Laikana Marty Lee. Dr. Lee will be pursuing a PGY1 residency program at Legacy Health Salmon Creek Hospital in Portland, Oregon. Next up, Dr. Alexandra K. Madsen. Dr. Madsen will be pursuing employment with CVS Corporation following graduation. Next up, Dr. Vincent Anthony Maynella. Dr. Maynella will be staying on at the School of Pharmacy to pursue a fellowship in conjunction with the Colorado Antiviral Pharmacology Lab. Next up, Dr. Clyde Anthony Marquez. Dr. Marquez will be pursuing a PGY1 residency program at University of Utah, Salt Lake City, Utah. Next up, Dr. Joseph Timothy Martinez. He's going to be hooded today by Dr. Toby Trujillo. Dr. Martinez will be completing a community-based PGY1 residency training program at Campbell University in Blues Creek, North Carolina. Next up, Dr. William Lee Martinez. Dr. Martinez will be pursuing a PGY1 residency program at UC Health Memorial Hospital in Colorado Springs. Next up, Dr. Timothy Ian McLean. Dr. McLean will be pursuing employment with the King Soopers Corporation following graduation. Next up, Dr. Sandra Michelle Miller. Dr. Miller will be hooded today by Dr. Zainab Hassan. And Dr. Miller will be pursuing employment with Safeway Corporation following graduation. Next up, Dr. Luke David Milner. Dr. Milner will be joining the Parexel Corporation as a research associate following graduation. Next up, Dr. David Vaughn Miner. He's going to be hooded today by Dr. Peter Rice. Next up, Dr. Ashley Lynn Moe. Dr. Moe will be pursuing employment with Walmart Corporation following graduation. Next up, Dr. Megan Christina Nelson. Dr. Nelson will be pursuing employment with Walgreens Corporation following graduation. Next up, Dr. Cecilia Tao V. Nguyen. Dr. Nguyen will be pursuing a PGY1 residency training program at Alameda Health Systems, Highland Hospital in Oakland, California. Next up, Dr. Jimmy Nguyen. All right, next up, Dr. Joshua Tuan Nguyen. He's going to be hooded today by Dr. Angie Steffen. And Dr. Nguyen will be pursuing employment with Centura Health following graduation. All right, next up, Dr. Chinidima Anya. Dr. Anya will be hooded today by Dr. Hilda B. And will be pursuing fellowship training with Sanofi Corporation in Boston, Massachusetts. Next up, Dr. Brandon Scott Ostro. Next up, Dr. Kathy Pan. Dr. Pan will be pursuing employment with CVS Corporation following graduation. Next up, Dr. Sonali Mahesh Patel. Dr. Patel will be pursuing employment with Kindred Hospital following graduation. Next up, Dr. Austin P. Fan. Dr. Fan will be pursuing employment with King Soopers Corporation following graduation. Next up, we have Dr. Elizabeth Suzanne Peel. She's going to be hooded today by Dr. Charlie Pratt. Dr. Peel will be pursuing employment with Walmart Pharmacy Corporation following graduation. All right, next up, Dr. Melissa Nicole Porter. She's going to be hooded today by Dr. Angela Stefan. Dr. Porter will be pursuing a PGY1 residency program at Massachusetts General Hospital in Boston, Massachusetts. All right, next up, Dr. Caitlin Nicole Potts. Dr. Potts will be completing a PGY1 residency training program with Centura Health Penrose, St. Francis Health Services Hospital, Colorado Springs. Next up, Dr. Jacob John Rasmussen. Dr. Rasmussen will be pursuing employment as a consultant pharmacist with Initium Health. Next up, Dr. Isabella Jade Reyes. All right, next up, Dr. Madison Hope Rico. She'll be hooded today by Dr. Tom Antrodoki. Next up, Dr. Kalian A. Rocket. Dr. Rocket will be pursuing a PGY1 residency training program at Portsmouth Regional Hospital in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. All right, next up, Dr. Joseph C. Retkin. Dr. Retkin will be pursuing employment as a consultant pharmacist with Life Sciences Strategy Consulting, ZS Associates. Next up, Dr. Stephen Jeffrey Romero. He's going to be hooded today by his mother, Dr. Marissa Romero. Dr. Romero will be pursuing a PGY1 residency training program at Parkland Hospital in Dallas, Texas. All right, next up, Dr. Austin Michael Saderup. He'll be hooded today by Dr. Jose Castillo. Dr. Saderup will be pursuing a PGY1 residency training program at Temple University Hospital in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. All right, next up, Dr. Brianna Marie Silas. Dr. Silas will be hooded today by Dr. Wesley Neufer. And she will be pursuing employment with Walgreens Corporation following graduation. All right, next up, we have Dr. Alexis Maria Sanchez. She will be hooded today by Dr. Derek Kinzo. And she will be pursuing employment with King Supers Corporation following graduation. Next up, Dr. Maggie Lynn Schieber. She will be hooded today by Sean Schieber, her mother, also a pharmacist. Dr. Schieber will be pursuing a PGY1 residency training program at Rush University Medical Center in Chicago. Next up, Dr. Aubrey Gray Schrader. Next up, we have Dr. Catherine Elizabeth Scott. She will be hooded today by Dr. Sunny Lineber. Dr. Scott will be pursuing a PGY1 residency training program at Sky Lakes Medical Center in Klamath Falls, Oregon. Next up, Dr. Tyler Robert Scott. Dr. Scott will be pursuing employment with King Soopers Corporation following graduation. Next up, Dr. Simona Senovitita. She will be hooded today by Dr. Peter Rice. She will be completing a fellowship in research and development with Janssen Pharmaceuticals in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Next up, Dr. Yana Shandili. Dr. Shandili will be pursuing a PGY1 residency training program at Sarasota Memorial Hospital, Sarasota, Florida. Next up, Dr. Zachary Dwayne Smith. Dr. Smith will be pursuing employment with Red Rocks Pharmacy following graduation. Next up, Dr. Charisse Surio. Dr. Surio will be pursuing a PGY1 residency training program with Legacy Health in Portland, Oregon. Next up, Dr. Darwin Nguyen Ta. Dr. Ta will be pursuing employment with an Albert Safeway Corporation following graduation. Next up, Dr. Arya Tehrani. He will be hooded today by Dr. Lily Arabshahi, his mother. Dr. Tehrani will be pursuing a fellowship with University of California, San Francisco in conjunction with Genentech in San Francisco, California. Next up, Dr. Chris Thomas. Dr. Thomas will be pursuing a residency program at Presbyterian St. Luke's Medical Center in conjunction with Rocky Mountain Hospital for Children. Next up, Dr. Kaylin M. Thomas. Dr. Thomas will be pursuing employment with Sam's Club Pharmacy after graduation. Next up, Dr. Riley Thompson. He will be hooded today by Dr. Megan Thompson. Dr. Thompson will be pursuing a PGY1 residency training program at University of California, Davis Health Sciences Center in Sacramento, California. Next up, Dr. Amy Tran. All right, next up, we have Dr. Brenda Kong Tran. She'll be hooded today by Dr. Christopher Block. Dr. Tran will be pursuing a PGY1 residency training program at the Veterans Administration Hospital in Palo Alto, California. Next up, Dr. Jonathan T. Trong. Dr. Trong will be pursuing a PGY1 residency training program at Valley Children's Hospital in Madera, California. Next up, Dr. Alex Ling Sang. Dr. Sang will be pursuing a PGY1 residency training program at Swedish Hospital in North Shore, Chicago. Next up, Dr. Anthony William Urban. Next up, we have Dr. Chelsea Marie Vallejos. She will be hooded today by Dr. Liza Klaus. Dr. Vallejos will be completing a PGY1 residency program at Children's Hospital here in Aurora. Next up, Dr. Joshua Caleb Williams. Dr. Williams will be pursuing employment with Walgreens Corporation following graduation. All right, next up, Dr. James Aaron Wilson. Dr. Wilson will be hooded today by Dr. Sean Osborne. And he will be pursuing employment with King Soopers Corporation following graduation. Next up, Dr. James Francis Wing. Dr. Ring will be pursuing a PGY1 residency training program at Christus St. Vincent's Regional Medical Center in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Next up, Dr. Sandra Nicole Woish. Dr. Woish will be pursuing employment at Craig Hospital following graduation. Next up, Dr. Abby Jewel Weimer. Dr. Weimer would be pursuing employment with King Soopers Corporation following graduation. Next up, Dr. Christine Tamiko Yee. She will be hooded today by her brother, Dr. Alan Yee. All right, next up, Dr. Sydney Alexandra Zakharoff. She will be hooded today by Dr. Robert Geller. Dr. Zakharoff will be pursuing a PGY1 residency training program at Children's Hospital Colorado in Colorado Springs. As we round out this class hooding process, we want to recognize a few of the individuals of the class of 22 who are unable to join us today. So that would be Dr. Elise Warledge, Dr. Dennis Dominguez, Dr. Jenny Yu, and Dr. John Templeton. Please help me in congratulating them. All right, now that you guys are all officially hooded, I'm going to turn things over to Dr. Megan Thompson to lead you in the oath of the pharmacist.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm just going to wait a few more moments for the rest of your class. Sydney Zakharoff, always last with the Z name, right? I know. All right, congratulations, everyone. My name is Dr. Megan Thompson, and I have the honor of serving as the Assistant Dean for Experiential Programs here at the University of Colorado School of Pharmacy and Pharmaceutical Sciences. It is truly a pleasure to be here with you to celebrate this important milestone in your professional careers. You have made lasting impressions on your patients, your preceptors, the faculty and staff, and on me personally. Your class is the most driven group of students I have encountered in my 19 years in academia. Never before have I worked with such ambitious, purposeful, and focused individuals. At the start of this P4 year, you knew exactly what you wanted and what it would take to get where you are today. You have certainly raised the bar for those who will follow. I am so proud of your accomplishments and look forward to all of the great work you will accomplish as you transition into your roles as one of the most skillful and trusted members of the healthcare team. And as you now know, being a pharmacist carries with it, as Dr. Cecina and Spider-Man said, comes great responsibility and high expectations as well. We are confident that you will embrace your role and utilize the knowledge and skills you have worked so hard to attain in order to best serve your patients, your communities, and society. So as you embark on the next chapter in your journey, it is important to affirm your commitment to upholding the highest professional standards by reciting the oath of a pharmacist. This oath is taken by all pharmacists upon entry to the profession and serves as a binding promise to those you serve. Please turn to page 15 of the Pharmacy Perspectives magazine to find the oath, then join me in raising your right hand and reciting along with me. You can stand, please. Thank you. All the other pharmacists in the audience can also stand and recite the oath if they'd like as well. Okay, ready? I promise to devote myself to a lifetime of service to others through the profession of pharmacy. In fulfilling this vow, I will consider the welfare of humanity and relief of suffering my primary concerns. I will promote inclusion, embrace diversity, and advocate for justice to advance health equity. I will apply my knowledge, experience, and skills to the best of my ability to assure optimal outcomes for all patients. I will respect and protect all personal and health information entrusted to me. I will accept the responsibility to improve my professional knowledge, expertise, and self-awareness. I will hold myself and my colleagues to the highest principles of our profession's moral, ethical, and legal conduct. I will embrace and advocate changes that improve patient care. I will utilize my knowledge, skills, experiences, and values to prepare the next generation of pharmacists. I take these vows voluntarily with the full realization of the responsibility with which I am entrusted by the public. You may be seated. So congratulations again, class of 2022, and welcome to the profession. Have a great day celebrating your success. You truly deserve it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Thompson, and congratulations again, class of 2022. As many of you know, today is Dr. Thompson's last day with us at the university. Her efforts and her experiential team's efforts have been critical in getting to this point of graduating on time without delays through the course of the pandemic. Dr. Thompson's efforts have been greatly appreciated by both our faculty, staff, and students. So let's give her a round of applause as we send her off. Now that you will officially be alumni of the program as of right now, we would like to invite Dr. Lokendra Upadhyay up to the podium to give you some remarks from our Alumni Association.
Well, good morning, class of 22. Give yourselves, I think, another round of applause. And to commemorate today, I'd like to take a selfie with the crowd. Are y'all ready for this? There we go, just one. There you go, thank you. Thank you so much. So my name is Lokendra Upadhyay, President of the School of Pharmacy Alumni Association. And I'm deeply honored and proud to be here with you today to offer a few remarks. It doesn't matter how you got here or how hard it was. You are almost to the finish line. But before then, I'm that guy that stands between you and leaving here today. But don't worry, I'm not going to ask you for any money right now, being part of the Alumni Association. Maybe later. Baskets are on tables in the back on your way out. So over the last few weeks, I've been to 4 separate graduations for my children in Georgia. In each, the speaker would either start or end by saying, home of the national champion Georgia Bulldogs, followed by the woo, woo, woo. All right. Now, if you've ever been to Sanford Stadium, 90,000 people barking, it's pretty intimidating, right? While football national championships are impressive and come around occasionally, this beautiful setting we are in today is lifelong. Somewhere northwest of us in the lovely foothills of the Rocky Mountains is our original campus in Boulder. Some of you sitting here today pursued your thirst for learning there, either as an undergrad or a graduate student. What you may not be aware of is that our flagship Boulder campus has a creed. It's one I would like to propose we adopt in celebration of this beautiful group of people before us today. The creed reads something like this. I agree to act with honor, integrity, and accountability in my interactions with students, faculty, staff, and neighbors. Respect the rights of others and accept our differences. Contribute to the greater good of this community. I will strive to uphold these principles in all aspects of my collegiate experience and beyond. The creed upholds the following benefits, a couple of which are touched upon the pharmacy oath that you all just recited. A safer, richer experience in the CU community, a more valuable degree that can enhance a job search, a better understanding of different students, cultures, and community members, a rewarding sense of belonging on campus and in the community. Everyday pride in CU's heritage for students, faculty, staff, alumni, businesses, and members of the community. As a representative of the alumni relations for your alma mater, I invite you to carry this creed forward in your pharmacy career as you step across the threshold into the new journey as alumni of CU SCAG School of Pharmacy and Pharmaceutical Sciences. Ladies and gentlemen, you're now part of a distinguished community consisting of graduating classes that sat in those very seats prior to you. You are now part of a distinguished community consisting of graduating classes with colleagues that you sit next to today. And you are also a part of a distinguished community consisting of graduating classes that will follow you. Ladies and gentlemen, family and friends, esteemed faculty, and honored guests, it is my privilege to debut the newest members of the CUPharmacy alumni community and extended branch of our CUPharmacy family, which we lovingly call Pharmily, the future of our profession and the rank and file of our intellectual best. On this 22nd year of the new millennium, I give to you the class of 2022.
Thank you, Lakendra, for those remarks. Except I think I'm the last person to stand between them and the end of the ceremony today. So in closing, on behalf of our faculty and staff, I thank you, the class of 2022, for bringing your wealth of talents to our school and to the Anschutz Medical Campus. And we welcome you into our Alumni Association. So we want you really to stay in touch with us, share your experiences, and inform us of ways we can improve our program. Today, you become pioneers leading the way in the fast-changing landscape of healthcare and the emerging roles and responsibilities of pharmacy practice that are becoming realities and not just hopes and dreams. You have the tools to succeed, to not be afraid to push boundaries, to take calculated risks, to advance the profession and improve care for your patients. We wish each of you the very best in the esteemed profession you have chosen. May you grow and prosper in your careers, and may people everywhere benefit from the gifts you have to offer. If ever there was a time when your communities, your states, your nation, and the world need you, it is now. Be the professionals that you are, the caregivers that you are, and the healers that you are, for that is now your purpose in life. Remember to also take care of yourselves. We need you. We have reached the end of our convocation ceremony and the beginning of the next chapter in your lives. Congratulations once again to the class of 2022. Be strong and be safe. And for the last time, class is dismissed.